Hey everybody, this is Rob Sogamonian from Cook Along Live, and tonight I have a crab. I just came back from work and I've got some crab, and this is just dinner for me tonight. So I figured what better way to clean it than to actually show y'all how I do it. So I figured that I would try a little bit something new. If you go and check my Instagram stories or TikTok, you should see a vertical version of this video that I'm actually recording at the exact same time as this one, using a new plugin for my recording software. So we'll see how it works out. Don't judge me too much, but yeah, this is just a test. This weekend, I'm actually not in the area. I'm down in Anaheim, so this Cook Along Live is actually pre-recorded. So sorry about that, but we're gonna be cleaning a crab. So this is all we're doing tonight, just a crab. It's actually easier than I'm sure that you think. It looks pretty difficult, but cleaning crab is actually super easy. A bit messy, so if you're kind of grossed out by like gooey stuff, maybe get some gloves, latex gloves or I guess vinyl gloves or whatever you want to call them, and pop on. Now this is going to be a live stream other than the vertical version for the reels and stuff like that. So uncut, we're just going to plow right through it and clean this crab. But it'll be cut down for the minute and a half or minute that I get on the other social platforms. So that's what we're going for here. We just want to do a test. I also got my camera. If you guys were watching my, if y'all were watching my scallops video the other day, my little camera over here wasn't working. So this is what that should have looked like. So you get a nice view of the cutting board. You get a nice little view of what we're going to be working with here. And we've got a cooked crab. I did not get this cracked from the store. There's not really a reason to get it cracked. If you do the cracking yourself, if you decide to break it down yourself, this goes super quick, and you're gonna have it cracked exactly the way you want it. The guys at the store do kind of go for a little bit of speed over, I'm gonna say quality. Quality is not really the right word, but speed over all else. And so sometimes you will get just lots of shell in your crab. It won't be cracked very well at all. You get kind of both ends of the spectrum. So we're just gonna take this guy apart piece by piece. I've also, of course, got our overhead cam so we can see what the crab looks like from the top down. And this is actually where we're gonna start this week. So as far as top down, here we go. We're gonna go ahead and start popping this guy apart. Now, crab is actually super easy to break down, as I mentioned. First thing we're gonna do is actually flip him over so that we can see the bottom of him. You can see we got all these beautiful legs, the claws, and everything. I prefer to buy mine cooked. I just think it's a little bit less of a hassle than dealing with a live crab. But you do you. Now, what we're going to look for on this crab, there's a little flap right here at the bottom. And if you kind of use your thumb on this side, there's a little bit of goo right there. Let me actually just kind of wipe this off. You'll notice that there's a little bit of a flap here, and you can actually use your finger to kind of get under this flap, and you can peel it back like this. And there's a couple of little feelers in this little crevice. Now, I'm going to switch over to our camera over here, just so that you can see exactly where that is. So you'll see that this kind of close-up camera right here is nice for this purpose. So we can see that there's this little crevice, and the shell will look like this when you get the crab. What you want to do is come under and peel this piece up. You might need to get a fingernail under there or use a butter knife or something and just kind of, pry up underneath, and then you can pull it back like so. And what we're going to do with this actually, you can maybe tell, latches to the rest of the shell. So if we're looking here, we can see that this is connected to the rest of the shell. Using whichever hand is easiest for you, and this is kind of awkward with the camera, but we're going to do it anyway. We want to push down into the back of this crab like so. And what this is going to do is actually get our finger underneath the top shell. You can use the back legs as kind of leverage, and we're just going to peel the entire top shell off of this crab. And this is where the disgusting part is, because you're going to get all of that lovely innards of the crab out here. Now you'll notice that I'm doing this on top of the paper that the crab came on, and this is a big reason why. So if you want gloves, this is the time to get the gloves. We've taken off the entire top shell of the crab. You can see that there's a lot of kind of gooey liquid in there. This paper that they use is treated, it's wax paper, so none of that is going to go through. And then we've got all of the crab's gills and everything that it uses to breathe. And on the front of the crab, we got some mandibles and stuff. So it is kind of disgusting the first time, maybe the second or third time you do it. But you get used to it. And especially if you're wearing gloves, there's nothing gross touching your hands. But you don't need to use gloves if you don't want to. You can see that I'm not using gloves at all. I like to kind of stack everything into the top shell that I'm going to get away, just to kind of keep it all together. And then I'll put this all into this little plastic bag over here and then wrap it up and just take it straight out to the garbage, because this will stink up your trash can like no one's business. So I also like to just kind of come through, peel off anything, and you'll notice that this is where the body segments are. You can see one body segment on this side, one body segment over on the other side, and the legs and the claws are attached to that. Go ahead and get this. I'm just going to kind of scoop out some of this. Now this yellow goo, some people actually really enjoy eating. I am not one of them, but you know, again, if you want to give it a shot, go for it. They call it crab butter. Ugh. Ain't that great. And then here we go. We've essentially got a cleaned crab. So we've popped off the top shell. We have two crab body halves, and then we've got all of the little appendages. So for the vertical mode, here's our cracked crab. We've got the two body parts, two body halves, and then all of the different claws and legs. Now what we're going to do with this is I'm actually going to take this over to our sink, and we're going to get it kind of rinsed off. So let's switch over to the sink cam. And I don't know why, but my Elgato camera does not want to work today. So let's go ahead and keep that on. They should pop it on in just a second. There we go. So let's jump over to the sink and take a quick look at this crab. So again, we've got a beautiful crab here. We've got the two halves of the body. We've got all of the legs, all of the claws. All we're going to do is rinse this under some cool water and try to get all of the little goo out of the body. Since the crab body is still all together, we haven't started cracking it apart, none of the meat should come out. It should just be rinsing off goo, rinsing off any seawater, and just kind of generally cleaning the outside of the crab. That's what we're doing at this point. And there we go. So now instead of having a goobery crab, we have a nice and clean crab. We'll take this back over to our cutting board and resume. Here we are. So we've got our crab all nice and cracked, or at least the shell, the top shell taken off, and the crab cleaned. So we got our two body parts, we've got all of our legs, we've got our claws, we're good to go. We can take everything that's on the cutting board now, all of this wax paper, all of the innards, and the top shell, and we can get it ready to go away somewhere where it's not going to stink up our kitchen. So I like to roll everything up like so. And then I usually have a couple of extra plastic bags, which I don't have at the ready yet, so give me just a second. I usually keep these plastic bags for any recycling that I'm going to take out, because it's easier to remove a bag of recycling than individual cans and bottles. I'm going to take this straight into here, and then this will go outside as soon as I'm done filming this. So there we go. I'm going to dry off my cutting board so that I don't get any off odors from any goo that came off of that paper. And we've got our crab. So switching back over here, we've got our crab. We've got our body. We've got all of our legs. We've got our claws. In order to clean this crab, it's super simple. We're going to take the body, we're going to turn it upside down like so, and we're just going to push right in the middle. And what you're going to get is a nice satisfying crack. You can actually turn it inward too if it's not popping outward, like so, right down the middle. And that will cause the crab to turn into 2 segments. This is the body that I'm sure all of you know and love. So now we can just kind of come up to the sockets and pop out our legs. Try to roll the socket itself kind of backwards and up, and that'll pop the whole socket out. Sometimes you get the segment from the body, which is totally fine. Here we go. 3, 4 legs. Boop. We've got all of our legs. A little bit of extra meat. Now our claw will just pop off here. And now we've got our body. We've got one set of body, claws, and legs. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with the other one. Just going to start with the rear one. Just kind of pop it out. Just set it on top, pop it out, set it on top, pop it out, set it on top, pop it out, set it on top. And then last but not least, our claw. And there we go. All of our crab has been cracked. And that is how you crack crab if you've never done it before. Now, that's the easy bit. That's getting the crab broken down. It's clean crab. It's nice. If you find any extra bits of goo or anything from the inside, you can always rinse it off some more. Now we get to the fun part. You will need a meat tenderizer or some kind of a rolling pin or something heavy for this next bit. Because what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up breaking these and just kind of giving them a nice light cracking. And let me find where I put my meat hammer. Here it is. Meat tenderizer. So we're going to use our meat tenderizer here to go through and kind of crack up the crab. We're going to use the flat end of it. So don't use the serrated end, for lack of a better word, the side that'll leave an imprint. Use the flat side. It'll work better. I'm going to set it over to the side. Now, I use cloth towels when I have them, but right now I'm out. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the bodies and just set them aside. We're not going to use the hammer or the mallet on any of these. Any of the bodies, any extra kind of crab meat, we're going to set up there. And then I'm going to move on to my claws. And what I'm going to do with my claws is I'm going to find the back part here. Oh, and it looks like our claw actually broke off, which is fine. What I'm going to do back here is I'm going to find the flat end, the flat side, and put it flat down. And we're going to go ahead and put our towel over it and just very lightly give it a couple of taps. You don't want to slam down on it. If you slam down on it, you will just shatter the shell. And you'll notice that this is nicely cracked right down here in the middle. And if you have a crab cracker or your fingers, you can pry it apart and get in at the meat in the interior. So you just want to give it a nice little crack just to kind of get it separated, or at least get it started. I'm going to go ahead and put that piece of crab meat up there. You don't want to slam it like they tend to do at the stores. And you might have a really cool fishmonger who doesn't slam things and you get really nice cracked crab. Cool, that's great. The ones that I use, or the ones that are here, tend to be a little heavy-handed. So I grab the little knuckle here. If I still had that back piece attached, it would be just the same. I just put that little knuckle under here. Just give it a couple of light love taps, I like to say. And then again, this is cracked just enough to where I can just peel it open with my fingers. I don't even need a like a crab cracker to really get in here. I can just kind of peel it apart. Same thing with the actual claw itself. Now with the claw, what I like to do is actually pop out this section because there's no meat in it. This section is just shell. So what I like to do is just pop that out before I even get started. And I'm going to put it down like that. So claw side down and then laying flat on the cutting board. And then again, just a couple of light taps. And you'll notice that I've got a nice little crack here that I can peel apart. And then it's also cracked over here. So I can just use my fingers to kind of break open the shell. like so. And then me or a guest or whoever can just kind of slide the meat out. Works super, super well. We'll set that there. And then all you're going to do is with all of the rest of your pieces of crab, just give them a couple of taps. So we'll just demonstrate with this, and we're going to leave it together as if we're going to serve it to somebody. So I'm going to kind of take this, I'm going to find the flat end. In this case, since the claw is all together, I'm not going to lay it down because that would separate it. I'm going to find this end, flat side down, give it just a couple of cracks, check it. There we go. Another couple of cracks. And then I'm going to lay it this way because I'm really just trying to find the flat end. And crack that little knuckle. And then you can just peel this out if you want. You can leave it. It doesn't hurt anything. It just makes it easier to crack it if it's gone. And then we'll just do that, and a couple of cracks there. And now this is separated. So I can set that there. And then the same thing with all the legs. Here's a leg. They kind of lay flat. Just kind of crack it. And now this is good enough to crack in half. We can pull it out, any of the meat that we need. And we can even peel it apart even more if we want to. And there we go. Some extra leg meat. And let's just kind of peel this piece apart like so. And then we will pull out the meat from here. And there we go. It's really up to you whether you want to take the time to crack these kind of lower knuckles. There's usually not very much meat in there. But if you have a pretty robust crab, kind of a chonky boy, and you really want to get in, you can get every last bit of meat out. Again, this is nothing but shell, so you can go ahead and remove it. Just makes it easier to kind of crack through here. And then I like to do it vertically if I'm going to do it on these. Just a nice light tap. And then the same thing with the back knuckle. I'll turn it around. Just a nice light couple of taps. I'm trying to separate it the long way. And then we can just kind of peel off the shell into the two halves and get out as much meat as we can. It's really up to you. Sometimes that's not worth it. Sometimes it is. In this case, I think it might be worth it. Maybe not that middle knuckle. And the reason being, the little kind of tendons often get caught up in the meat, and it's really hard to get it out. But there we go. We got a full leg's worth of meat out of those. I like to use a towel. The reason I use a towel, sometimes when you're kind of cracking the legs, you get a lot of splatter. I don't know if you saw it kind of shoot out the end of that crab leg, but you can get quite a bit of splatter coming out of these. Using a towel just kind of keeps it all contained, so you don't have any arterial spray, as it were. But you don't have to. You can see that this is kind of gushing all over the place. Using a towel on top, well, I guess on the back there, we'll just have to make sure the whole thing is covered, like so. And you can generally feel through the towel when you're cracking your crab leg, so you don't have to worry too much about not being able to see it, but it's up to you. And then again, this piece, I would just kind of add it to the pile of crab that we've got going on over there. And then I would just go through, crack the rest of the crab, especially if I'm doing this, couple crab, maybe for a Cioppino or for a little party if I have a bunch of people coming over for fresh crab. And I'll just get it all cracked up and ready. Then my guests can come in, and all they have to do is peel the crab apart and pull out all the little bits of meat that they want. They don't have to worry about using crackers. They don't have to worry about using those little itty-bitty forks that are kind of useless for anything other than crab. They can just peel apart the shells, pull out the meat. And if you're making some kind of like a crab salad, this is absolutely the way that you crack it so that you get the nice big pieces of meat out of the crab instead of all the little, like, tearing it apart. This is the way. Let's switch over to here. I'll show you guys on this camera how I do it with the legs. So I've got a leg here. And again, I'm going to try and find kind of with the legs, it's easier to kind of push them down like so and get like a nice flat run of crab leg. I may or may not remove this front claw because again, it's just shell. There's not really anything there. And here we go as far as like the crab leg is concerned. And again, just to stop any juices from kind of spraying out of this crab leg, I'll cover it with something, usually a towel. Newspaper works too. And then I'll just kind of go from knuckle to knuckle to knuckle and just gently give it a couple of taps. You'll feel when the shell is cracking. You don't want to slam on it. You just want to break it enough so that you can very easily just peel the segments apart and pull out the meat without having to worry about using anything else. So we can get all the meat out of this guy. Move on to the next knuckle. Just kind of, you saw that all I did was twist it this way, and it's already broken open, and I can just keep kind of deconstructing it to pull out the meat. And this is a fantastic way to get nice big chunks of crab. If you have anything where you actually want to show off your crab skills, again, and take this, I'm just going to twist it. So twist it one way and the other, and you're basically just kind of popping it open. The shell comes right off. And then I can come in here and just peel out meat, like so. Hard to do for the camera, but there we go. A little bit left in here, but I'm not giving the crab the satisfaction of eating me. So there's all the meat gone from the leg. There we go. Now this crab was, the reason I'm doing this right now is because it tends to be crab season, so crab is on sale. At least in my area it is. I'm sure if you live anywhere on the West Coast or even on the East Coast, you're seeing some sales on crab. And so hopefully this will save you a little bit more money, because instead of getting the crab cracked and paying a little bit extra for them to do it, and sometimes do it in a little bit of a worse way than you might be able to do it at home, this is a great way for you to do it on your own and not have to worry about any of that. You can very easily kind of take care of your crab yourself, have a beautiful amount of crab to eat for dinner, and just enjoy. So again, just a little bit more work, but honestly, not too bad, and shouldn't deter you from giving this a try yourself. I'm going to go ahead and just go through and crack the rest of this. If you're not talking while you do it, you should be able to do it fairly quickly. And again, as you get to, I mentioned it earlier, may not be worth going into these smaller knuckles to crack them, just because some of the smaller legs, you're not getting much meat out of them for the time that you're spending on them. I mean, you're not spending very much time, but still. There we go. I'm not even going to worry about that middle knuckle because there's not really anything in there. And I'm actually doing the cracking and peeling at the moment, because as soon as I'm done with this video, I'm going to be eating crab. But for this, just show you how quickly you can kind of get through a crab. The video probably won't be very much more than a half hour. And if you're really kind of doing this and focusing on it and not talking at the same time, you can go quite a bit quicker than I am going. There we go. There we go. And for these little legs, I'm probably just going to do the outer knuckle. because there's not going to be very much meat at all in these little kind of inner guys. Not really a reason to even spend the time. Now this one, I've got a bit of the body that came off, so I'm going to peel this apart. And dig out the meat. There we go. And I'll just pop that off because I don't need it anymore. Again, you'll notice that any of the pieces that I don't really need, I'm taking them off just to make it that much easier for me to kind of flatten things out and not have to worry about little bits sticking out all over the place. Now let's see. Let's see how much meat we get out of this. And then what I'll do is I'll show you how I usually take apart a body. And I'm not going to worry about that small knuckle. No meat out here, so I'm just going to kind of pop it off. Take off our little nubbin at the end. Give this a nice light crack. And just peel it apart like that. Last bit of meat there. And then really, like, these guys are so thin that there's not going to be anything coming out of them. Again, I just don't want to spend the time. Cool. So we totally de-meated our legs and one claw. I'll go ahead and just finish taking apart this claw. And let's go ahead and switch over here. Get the meat out. And again, the great thing about this is when you're cracking it yourself, since you're being a little bit more, I'm going to say discerning with how you kind of get these pieces cracked apart, you're much less likely to have bits of shell in your meat. I know that a lot of times when I go to the meat counter, I'm going to say like 9 times out of 10, they've pretty much just obliterated the crab. Because again, they're working for efficiency. They usually have a bunch of other stuff to do. You're kind of taking them away from that. They just want to get the crab cracked in a bag and out to you, so you can take it home and eat it. They're not super concerned all the time with doing a good job of just getting a nice crack on these pieces. And here we go. Knuckle. And now we got our bodies. So for the bodies, really, all it is little, you can actually look at, if you look at it from the top, I'll actually switch over here really quick. If you look at a body from the top, we'll look at the bigger one here, you can see that it's just segments or sections of crab kind of going back into the crab body. You can kind of see it from the bottom as well here. You can see the little segments of crab. So I use those as guides and really just peel back from there. And you see that the shell came off. And I've got this giant chunk of meat that I can just kind of pop out. So look at that, that's all meat. So we got the shell that came out, we've got all that meat. And then I'll just keep pulling the shell off and throwing it into the bowl, or in my case, the garbage here, whatever you have. And then I'll just move on to the next section, and I'll just kind of peel it. And what I'll do is try to kind of leverage so that I can get these things to separate. If you really want, you can just kind of push down like this, and it'll help kind of break the interior walls, which will help the top kind of pop off. And then again, I'm just going to peel it back. And then I've got all this meat that I can just kind of scoop out with a finger. Leaving just the shell behind. So that's just 2 sections of that particular piece of body. A couple pieces of shell, bunch of meat. I'm just going to take these and discard. And then we'll come in and clean out this bottom part of the body as well. And I'm just going to kind of peel and twist and just try to get these segments open. And there we go. Nice little bit of crab meat. Doggo hears somebody walking around outside. Not sure if you can hear him growling at them. But at least he's not barking. That's nice. And then we'll just keep going with his body. Twist it. And then just pull out any meat from the sections as they separate. There we go. Good section. And so we've gone from a full-size crab to just a couple of piles of crab meat. And this will be super easy to, again, if you're making like a cocktail salad, or you just like crab and want to eat it straight. We're essentially, much like how we chop our onions, we're not leaving anything behind. We're getting as much out of the product, for lack of a better word, as we can. All we're throwing away is shell pieces and not very much meat. And on this piece, again, we'll just kind of keep twisting it until we can get it to kind of pop open. And there we go. This is 1/2 of a crab body. The bodies are where most of the meat is. A lot of people like to eat the legs because they're, easier, and they usually come pre-cracked a little bit better, and they're usually less shell. But again, at the supermarket, when they're doing this with a crab body, they're usually hitting it a couple times with a mallet to make it easier for you to break open. And so it makes it more difficult to extract the crab meat without getting shell in it, because they've already kind of obliterated the shell. So here's our second piece of body. Just gonna do the same thing. Just kind of peel it. And then find the little meat pockets. I know that sounds terrible, but that's what it is. And we're just gonna pull all of the meat out, like so. And I know on the vertical camera you can't really see it, but if you watch the full video, the widescreen video, you can see that we almost have as much meat just from the body as we do from the legs. So if you've been one of those people, I have a lot of friends who are like, I don't like eating the body because it's never, like, there's not much meat in it and it's always bad. It's always crunchy, there's always shell in it. I mean, you're almost having the amount of meat that you're getting out of your crab if you're ignoring the body. But the best way to get the meat out of the body is to do it yourself, not use a mallet, and just kind of twist and break it apart to get the crab meat out. Then you'll have much less shell and much more meat, much more tasty meat. And so there we go. Crabs are done. That's the last of the shell. Going into the trash, which will go straight out into the dumpster. We'll switch over to probably this screen right here, just so that you can see. Got plenty of meat there. Got plenty of meat from the body. And our crab is cracked. Like, this is how you crack crab. This is how much meat I got out of just that one crab. So it's a super, super easy thing to do. Looking here, we've been recording for about 34 minutes. So again, if you're not talking and trying to explain this to anybody else while you're doing it, cracking through crab can go really, really quick. So you can get all of this done, probably you can do 2-3 crabs in 30 minutes. Again, I've been explaining it to you, but just do it piece by piece. Hey, we're gonna start with taking the shells off of all the crabs and cleaning them. Then we're gonna rinse them all out. Do it all in steps, right? Phases of breaking it down. Top shell off, over to the sink, all of the crabs, rinse them all out, set them aside, maybe in a colander, bring them back over here, break off all the legs, break the bodies in half, and then clean. Or just crack and serve so that your guests can actually peel apart the crab. I guarantee you, you do this, and you just take it to the cracked point where people can kind of peel it apart themselves and they don't need utensils to do it. It's an awesome, amazing crab night, and people will love it because they get to break it down. They don't need like the little forks. They don't need the crab crackers or any of that stuff, and they can just kind of peel crab apart, eat whatever's inside. Works great with Cioppino if you're doing crab and Cioppino, because again, super simple. Pull out the crab piece. Easy, easy, easy. Hope you guys give this a try. This was just kind of a quick demo, number one, for the vertical aspect, so I can see how That works because it's recording both of these at the same time, the widescreen aspect as well as the vertical aspect for all of the different social ways of kind of getting these things out there. And because this week I'm not in town, I'm actually down in Anaheim at a big real estate convention. In case you didn't know, I work for a company, Keller Williams Real Estate. Been here for 5 years. It's amazing. I love it here. I'm a team leader, so if you're interested in joining, give me a call. If you're interested in getting into real estate, give me a call. It's just my first letter of my first name, Sogomonian, my last name, at kw.com. Let me know. We have a free way to get you into real estate, so reach out. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Kind of a quickie, but a goodie, I hope. And I'm hoping you guys give this a shot. If you break down a bunch of crab yourself at some point, take some pictures. Tell me how it went. It's super simple. The first time, it is intimidating, and that's fine. You got to challenge yourself in order to grow. So enjoy. I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon, wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week on the next Cook Along Live. Bye, everybody.